All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Ify Ozomah, and I'm the supervising attorney for Cardinal Title, Maryland and DC offices. I'm here to talk to you today about title services. And first of all, I want to thank everyone for using Cardinal Title. And we do appreciate you guys as our agents. So today we're going to go through title services as it's from our perspective. We're going to look at the participants, all the people who participate in the title process, the three components of the title process, and the process itself. All right? So first of all, in a real estate transaction, we have participants. And we have the seller and the buyer, of course. We have the realtors, who, of course, may represent either side or just one side. We have the attorney. So in some states are attorney states, and then others, you don't necessarily have to have an attorney that represents you. However, we do have, even in Maryland, for instance, or in DC, those are not attorney states. However, we have situations where clients are represented by their own attorneys. We have the loan officer, if there's going to be a loan. And of course, we do have the title company at the head of the table over there. There are other participants like the appraiser, the inspector, a contractor, or a surveyor. So that's pretty much the people you may expect to liaise with when you have a title or transaction. All right, so right here we have a home purchase inflow chart, and it kind of breaks down the whole process. So when a buyer enters into a contract with their seller, we have the contract. We do have, if there's a loan going to be involved, then we have the loan instructions. We have the buyer has to go through that loan process. And I believe you all have a copy of that flow chart. You guys have any questions on that? Okay. All right. So with a real estate transaction, there are three sets of instructions that a title company has to work with. The title company works with the sale contract, the title commitment, and the lender's instructions. With the things that you have to remember when dealing with a title company is that you always have to keep the lines of communication open. Everything is a part of the process. So if there's something that comes up, it's very, very important that you let the title company know. Once your client enters into a sales contract, of course, what are the terms? What are the things that are very important for you to have a valid contract? Can somebody tell me like just one or two things? Does anybody have any ideas of what's important in the sales contract? We need names. We need the purchase price. We also need to know the date of closing. We need earnest money. If there's an earnest money deposit, we need to know what that is. It should be included in the contract. If there are any inspections in the contract, that should be included there. It should also say what day that the transaction is going to close. If there are things like real estate taxes, any kinds of prorations, transfer taxes for the state or the county, it should also talk about how that's going to be dealt with in the contract. It should have, of course, the signatures. And we always should remember that you, as the realtor, you have to always remember as the listing agent that you have to verify that whoever is signing, whoever's names that you have on the contract matches the names in the public records as the owners of the property. So once the title company, once you enter into a ratified contract, you send that ratified contract to the title company. When we receive it, there's certain information that we're going to need from you. We're going to need your information as the realtor. How much commissions are being paid? Is there a flat fee or an admin fee? Is there any other thing regarding your commissions or your deal with the seller or buyer that we as the title company need to know? We always recommend that you provide that information upfront. In fact, at the time you're sending the contract to us, if you're sending it by email, for instance, you can put all that information in the email as well and say, hey, just FYI, this is my commission. These are the things that are important to this contract that you need to know at that point. We also, part of the general information that we need is from the seller. So we need the seller's name, obviously. We're going to need their address, their phone number, their email address, because of course, we have to have direct communication with the seller. If that seller has a mortgage, we're going to need their mortgage information. We're going to need their social security numbers. If there's a HOA, front foot benefit, if it's in the state of Maryland, water, sometimes we need water information. These are information that only the sellers can provide us. So we're going to need all that information from the seller. With the buyer, we're also going to need the buyer's names, their addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, because we also need to have a direct line of communication, an open line of communication with the buyers. We need the buyer's social security numbers. Obviously, there's sometimes that, in general, with buyers, judgments against a buyer will not attach, but there are certain judgments that may attach or take priority over the buyer's purchase money mortgage. And that's the reason why we need to know if, for instance, there is a judgment against the buyer, we may need to be able to knock out that judgment and figure out if this judgment really belongs to the buyer. We have to do that, and that's why we need their social security number. With the buyers, sometimes we have buyers who want to get a survey, a location drawing or a survey. That's information that we're going to need like upfront. So as the realtor, if you're representing a buyer, once your buyer enters into a ratified contract, one of the questions that you can possibly ask is, hey, are you going to want a survey? Are you going to want a location drawing? If your buyer does want one, when you're sending the ratified contract to the title company, that is very important information that you can possibly provide to us at that point, because getting a location drawing or a survey does take a while. A location drawing is probably about a week, but if it's a boundary survey, it will take possibly 3 to 4 weeks or even longer. And the sooner we have that information, the better. Any questions so far? All right, so with the sales contract, once you have provided the title company with that ratified contract, and you provided the title company with the buyer's information, the seller's information, your realtor information, you should also remember that if there are any kind of changes to the contract, you have to provide it to us. I can't tell you how many times where it's the day before settlement or the day of the settlement, and we're trying to balance with the lender. And then that lender comes up on their CD, we see credits, a seller credits, or a broker credits. And we're like, where did that come from? We don't have that. And they're like, oh yeah, here you go. So we, as the title company, we should be one of the first to know if there are any kind of changes, if there are addendums changing the closing date, if there are addendums, providing a credit to the buyer or the seller, if there are addendums, post-settlement occupancy addendums, security deposit addendums, all of these things should be provided to the title company as soon as it becomes available. I mean, I would even go further to say, hey, if you know that you guys are going through a negotiation with the other party, you can actually give the title company a heads up and say, well, this, just so you know, this is in the works, and it should be coming to you shortly, but this is what we're thinking. So that kind of gives the title company a heads up, and at the point that they haven't received it from you, they can then give you a call back and say, hey, well, you did talk about this. Did it still happen? If it did, can you provide a copy? If it didn't happen, at that point, you'll tell them, well, it didn't happen. But I will, reiterate the importance of always bringing any new changes, any changes whatsoever, any addendums, any corrections to the type, any problems that may have an effect on the closing date to the title company as soon as you become aware of it. Okay?